Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is a very exciting day. We're going to be discussing something that falls under the umbrella of protective magic. It's something that has been done over the years, for many years, and it's something that I feel is very useful to know how to do. So we're going to be talking about binding work. And binding is something that if you consider yourself an occultist, a sorcerer, a sorceress, sorcerer, a witch, whatever title that you refer to yourself as, if you are in the, magic arts, in the practice of occultism, you want to know how to do an effective binding. It's something that is very useful and definitely comes in handy when someone is spiritually or metaphysically harming you in some sort of way. So if you have any interest at all in binding, if you have ever wondered how to do an effective binding spell, definitely stay tuned to the end of this video. I am going to be doing a real life demo of how I perform my binding work. And of course, everything that I show you, you can definitely tailor to your own interests and whatever you intuitively gravitate toward. But we're going to be talking a little bit about what binding is, how you can use it, what you need to steer clear of, the things that you need to make sure to incorporate, and then of course, like I said, stay tuned to the end to see the demo. Before we jump into any of the information in today's video, be sure to give a like if you enjoy content like this. It really helps me know how to tailor my channel to you guys. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you know anytime that I upload videos here. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, binding work is something that has been done spiritually in the spiritual and occultist communities for decades, centuries, a very long time. It's something that is very common, and it's something that's really good to know because especially in today's society and the world that we live in, where spirituality is very trendy and a lot of people are just doing things spiritually and not fully thinking things through. You want to know how to protect yourself against people that might be sending harm your way, whether this is someone that is new to occultism and magic or whether it's someone who is very seasoned and professional. So binding is it's very good to know how to do it, and it's good to know how to do it properly, and that's what we're going to be talking about and what I'll be showing you in this video. So what is binding? Performing a binding is something that you do when you want to spiritually restrain a person from doing harm either to you, to themselves, or to another person. So that's what a binding is. It basically is something that you do to neutralize a situation that is either escalating or has the potential to escalate into something much more serious. So you're just neutralizing the situation in a protective and in a defensive way so that the person is no longer able to harm you, harm themselves, or harm another person. How can you use a binding spell? Well, there are many different ways to bind. The most common way is the way that I just mentioned. However, there are a lot of people that like to do binding work in terms of love spells. So that is not something that I recommend personally. I do not believe in doing any sort of working that goes against a person's free will. It has very bad karma, very bad consequences, and so I am giving the disclaimer now that you should not do that. But I am going to be honest with you and tell you that there are people that do love bindings in which they want to bind their partner to them, bind a specific person to them romantically, and that is something that is out there and people do it often. Another way that binding can be used is to bind a specific person to a specific other thing. A good example of this would be, let's say for instance that you or a person that you know has a job that you really love and you want to stay in this job. It has a lot of really good benefits. It pays really well, you have flexible schedule, it has all the things that you love, but you're kind of in fear of losing that job, or there's been some cuts being made in the office and you're a little nervous that you might lose your job, you can bind yourself to that position or to that job in order to ensure that your position is not threatened. Or you can bind another person, of course, you know, consensually. You want to make sure that you have consent first. That's the big thing here. But you could bind another person to their work position, etc., etc. You get the point. And so let's just really quickly go through all three. You can bind a person from doing harm to you, themselves, or to another person. You can bind in a romantic way, which again is usually fine if the person has given consent. Otherwise, I do not recommend it. Or you can bind yourself or another person that has given you their consent to something or someone else. So those are the most common ways that binding work is used. The demo that I'm going to be demonstrating is going to be the protective sort of binding. So if a person is sending harm to you spiritually and, you know, trying to come after your health, they're trying to come after your job, your money, your sense of safety in any sort of way, that's the binding that I'm going to be demonstrating in terms of how to protect yourself and, again, spiritually restrain a person from doing that harm. There are many different ways that you can perform binding. You can use different elements in order to conduct your binding ritual. A lot of people like to use fire. A lot of people will use the earth or water or air in some way. It kind of depends on where you are being gravitationally or intuitively pulled, but the demonstration that I'm going to be showing you involves candle burning. So definitely do your research before you begin the ritual. You want to make sure that you are very specific and focused. You want to make sure that your intention is very strong throughout the working, and I'm going to be walking you through everything that I'm doing in the demonstration and giving you bits and pieces of guidance and information, little helpful tricks and things along the way. But definitely make sure that you are being thorough and that you are making it very clear throughout the ritual that you're doing. No matter what element you're using, you want to make sure you're being clear in terms of your intention and what it is that you want to occur through this working. So with that being said, you guys, I hope that you guys enjoy the demonstration. Again, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, you guys, welcome to my binding demonstration. Can we take a second to admire how beautiful my altar key is? Obviously, you're gonna need a black candle. Black is typically the color that is used for binding work. I am using a pull-out candle. This is my favorite candle to use because you can manipulate it a lot. You can take the wax out of the glass. You can write on the candle. It's a great thing to have in your arsenal. Next, you're gonna need some twine. I personally like to use twine. Next, you will need herbs. So I'm using mullein, Solomon seal, calamus, and something protective, which is devil's claw. Then you're gonna need oils. So you can use a binding oil. I'm using a protection oil that I made personally, and a binding oil. I'm going to be using the two together. You could use petition paper and a quill, especially when I'm pairing it with my dragon's blood ink. All right, so after you have gathered all of the necessary items that you're going to be using in your ritual, you definitely want to make sure that you cleanse your altar. Do not skip this step. Any residual energies that are left on your altar or left on you will transfer into the work. So right now I'm using Palo Santo for the sake of the demonstration. Then you're going to go in and you're going to cleanse the ritual items that you are going to be using for the binding. So as you can see here, I'm cleansing the glass with the Palo Santo. I think it's really cool to see the smoke in there. You want to cleanse the wax, the candle itself. cleanse yourself, like I said, and you just want to be very thorough with this because, again, it's all about that intention being very clear. You don't want leftover energies from other stuff. I like this little part here where the smoke is just kind of lingering in the glass. You can totally blow that out or you can keep it in there. All right, so after you have gathered your items, you have cleansed your altar, you've cleansed the items that you will be using in the ritual, you want to get your petition prepped. So for the sake of this ritual, for the demonstration, I'm gonna just be using a plain, lined sheet of paper. You could totally do the fancy petition paper with the quill. So I'm just using a regular piece of paper and a pen, but you want to write out as much detail as possible about the person that you're trying to bind. So you want to write their name, their birthday if you know it, their license plate number, their phone number, their address, whatever personal information that you have, the more detailed the better. And then you want to go into the petition itself. After that, you're going to gather your twine and you're going to cut off a generous length of that twine. And then you're going to take it along with the petition that you just wrote and folded, and you're going to tie your petition up. So you can use as much twine or as little twine as you'd like. Again, I'm going to be conservative with my resources for the sake of this demonstration, but you want to make sure that the petition is bound, that it is tied off. It should look something like this when you're done. So at this point, you're going to take your petition and you're going to drop it into the bottom of that glass. So you've taken the wax out and it's just the glass. You're going to drop your petition into the bottom and it's going to look like this. At this point, you can set that aside. From here, you're going to pick up your candle and you want to use something with a sharp edge, something with a fine point, but you're going to take that sharp edge and you're going to carve into your candle. Again, you want to make sure that you're writing going away from you. Next, we are going to move on to prepping our herbs. So if you're fancy and you have a mortar and pestle, you can use that. Or you could just use any bowl that you have on hand. Y'all, don't neglect your herbs. Like, the herbs are lending their magic and their intention to your working just as much as everything else. And so as you're prepping your herbs, you want to make sure that you're praying. You want to, get in there with your hands and work those herbs, guys. At this point, you're going to go back to your petition and your glass, and you're going to take those herbs and drop a bit into the bottom of the glass to sit on top of your petition. You're then going to take the oils that you have chosen, binding and protection oil. You're going to drop those on top of the petition as well. So as we just discussed, you're then going to take your carved candle and you're going to incorporate those oils and herbs on your candle itself as well. And you really want to work those herbs and oils into your candle, again, going away from you. So make sure that you remember that. You're going to add a little to the top of the candle. Don't neglect the top of your candle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your wax and you're going to place it back into the glass and set it on top of that petition. At that point, your working is complete. Your binding candle is done, and what's going to happen here is once you light the candle and it's burning, that wax is all going to drop into the bottom of that glass on top of the petition. And it acts to just kind of further bind the person that you are wanting to restrain. At that point, you can take a pair of scissors and trim your wick if that's something that you like to do. You've said your prayers, you've said your intention throughout this working, and so at this point, you're ready to light and bind away.